approaches you can choose. Now we're talking about lead. If you were asked to lead the initiative, what is it that you have to do? What are the techniques? What are the things that you need to be able to communicate so that you get people to execute what you would like them to do? So the leader's role in implementation is one thing we talked about. And some of the tools that we'll cover are basically how to have difficult conversations with your executive team, how to have difficult conversations with people who are resisting the change. And the technique we call left-hand column is what we will use to do that. And then there's something about coaching using the GROW model. The leader's role in change is there's a whole range of them when you lead. But it's essentially you have to influence without authority. If you use a lot of authority, then you're going to be challenged because you're basically forcing people to change. That will create a lot of difficult conversations. And difficult conversations are, for most of us, preferred to be avoided. But what we are saying is, no, have those difficult conversations, get out of the people what the issues are, and share with them why we would need to make the changes. And let's enroll the next level. How do you enroll these people below you at the next 2-3 levels? And how best to think through that. Okay. So, in terms of difficult conversations and emotional challenges, we have to remember that we have a logic in our head, and we have a natural part of our brain which is all about survival. If you look at the brain of a human being, it still fundamentally has got the same elements of that of a reptile. And those elements are all about survival, food, family, and whatever the needs are, basic needs. Then on top of that, we got this thing called cerebral cortex, which allows us to have logic. We got logic on one side and we got emotion on the other side. And if logic could be the only basis for making a good decision, then you know the world will make logical decisions again and again. But somehow, emotions get in the way and they contaminate the logic. And what we want to do is help people separate the two so that we have productive conversations on the logic side and decrease the amount of emotional points inside here, even though you have to respect the emotional elements on feelings. So we're going to talk about how do you feel about this. And this for some people that might be too touchy-feely, but it's all about people, it's all about human beings. And human beings have feelings. If feelings, if not respected, will contaminate the logic. We'll talk about another technique called ladder of inference. Ladder of inference is essentially how do people make conclusions? What was the data they used? And then based on the data, how do they logically come to a conclusion? And the question over here, which you guys all must have experienced in life, is two people talking about what seems to be the same issue, come up with different conclusions, and they disagree with each other. And they'll fight with each other, saying, I think you're wrong, I think I'm right, and they'll go back and forth. And the technique over here is called, if we could walk you down from your advocacy or conclusion and say, what data did you use to come to that conclusion? And put up the data on the table. And the other person puts the data on the table. Now you may actually have more data, but you can also understand why that person has that logic to that conclusion. And then you put both the data together into one place. I think you'll come up with a third conclusion, which may be even a better conclusion than the first or the second. So the whole point over here is when we talk to each other, rarely do we ask people, I'd like to understand why you came to that conclusion. I'd like to understand what data that you're using to do that. And they said, I understand why you came to that conclusion. Let me tell you why I have a different conclusion. This was my conclusion. Here's the data that I had. Based on this data, this is my conclusion. But now that we got more data, let's put it all together and see what might be a different conclusion. And sometimes you can invite it over to the other person's point of view, or you might be able to bring them over to your point of view. The point is not here to manipulate the other person. The point is use real data to be able to come up with conclusions. And don't fight on conclusions. Fight on whether the data that you have is the right data. And then once you agree that the data is the right data, then you will all come with the same logical conclusion. It's called going up the ladder of inference. And then the last part of this lecture will be all around GROW as a technique. And you'll ask questions around goals. What's the goal? What's the reality? What are the options? And what will you do? And this is how you start enrolling people below you. Anytime you ask people to do a change, you'll use GROW to do that. This techniques that we'll provide to you will help you have more productive dialogue with people around you, and will allow you to enroll people into the agenda of the strategy. If you do not have this dialogue, those very people that you should have had a dialogue with will sabotage your initiative. You need to enroll people into this thing. This is very important. And so you'll enjoy this part of the class because it's to provide you human skills and soft skills about interaction.